This is the C Word Podcast. Everything talked about in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and is not financial advice. You should always seek professional financial advice. Now, onto the podcast.
You know about like this whole thing with crypto and like the thoughts and the feelings around it, right? Did I ever tell you about like the night school that I tried to set up?
I love this one, yeah.
What night school?
No. Yeah, let me tell you about my night school that didn't even get off the ground. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because everyone hates crypto.
Yeah.
And deep down, there's this, you got two levels of crypto. You got this like magical bean style like effect, right? Where people are desperate to make money and they can't wait to make money. They want to make money, you know, they improve their lives or whatever, right? And then you have the reality, which is most people lost money, especially when you have these huge bull runs. Because what happens is people only invest when it's at its peak because they get massive FOMO and they don't want to lose out, and they see it on BBC News and they're like, oh my God, we need to invest in like cryptocurrency. But what they don't realize is that it's at its peak.
Yeah, it's on the news because it's at a peak.
Yeah, which is why it's been reported on traditional news, right? Old school television news, because it is an event that doesn't happen. And people forget to realize that it is at its peak, and they go all in, right?
That's that classic Warren Buffett thing though, right? Where he was like, you've always got to do the opposite of everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When your barber starts talking to you about buying Bitcoin, that's when you should be selling Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or your postman.
Yeah.
I've heard this analogy.
And
This is not financial advice.
what happens is everyone bought in at the top and then just watched their money disappear into nothing. Right.
And then blamed us because we told them how to set up a wallet.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so is this what happened at your night school?
Oh, well, here's the thing.
Circling back.
It's
Gil bought a Lambo and everyone.
and part of like the problem was I'd done that classic thing where I was starting to write all the presentations and stuff. I had the curriculum in my head. I was ready to go. I couldn't wait for this. And I was going to be like, people are going to be like loving it.
Tell them the name of the thing.
Yeah, so here's the thing. The name of the night school, are you ready for this? Was Crypto Night. Kryptonite.
I'm not going to lie, that's hard.
And I'd even...
So cheesy. So cheesy.
And
What was the name of it?
Kryptonite. So I'd registered the domain. Bad idea already, because I'd committed myself to it. Registered domain, built the website.
Amazing.
Was even offering the first set of people to come for free. Right, I was going to charge a very small amount, but
Sounds like a scam.
I wanted, But the thing is I had failed to realize one, how people felt about crypto, right, which was shit. They hated it deep down. They had family drama because someone had lost a load of money in crypto. And two, when I was trying to call around to find space to hold these lessons, no one would speak to me. Like, because I sort of failed to realize, that's literally how I felt every time one of these phone calls happened, right? And I failed to realize that the people that had lost money wasn't the traders.
Traders never lose money.
No. It wasn't...
Because they're hedging.
It wasn't because... Yeah, it wasn't the traders. It wasn't the bankers. It wasn't even the crypto bros and girls, right? The people that lost money was like the common person.
Yeah.
Right?
The
It was
crypto adjacent people.
Yeah, it was the receptionist in the library. Do you know what I mean? It was
The library where you were trying to book a room to.
yeah. If they found out, they'd boot us out straight away.
Yeah.
They're like, get out. But it was the common person. It was like the car wash cleaner. It was like You know, like it was just, it wasn't people that, it was people that were so far removed from crypto and technology. And these were the people that I was trying to speak to at the end of the day, and not one of them wanted to speak to me. As soon as they were engaged, up until the point that I told them it was a crypto night school, and they didn't want to know. They just, every single one of them, it was about 5 or 6, by the way, it wasn't an isolated case. Every single one of them just stopped talking to me. Like, and I'm talking to, they just blanked me.
But at the end of the day, like, I know we joke and we say, monopoly money, things like, it's still money.
Yeah.
You know,
It
you're
is.
still putting
Absolutely.
the investment in. That is your hard cash,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that anything financial or money related is always going to be emotionally triggering if you've made a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I realized. So this was about like 2 years ago, and it took me up
Right
until-
around FTX.
yeah. And it took me to that point to realize the depth of how people felt when they lost money. And by the way, my crypto night school, right, was, I'll tell you the contents of it. It was going to be educating people about blockchains and how they work in the first place, how tokens move about. I was going to educate people how you can create your own token, and letting them understand smart contracts and how actually every token or bit of logic on a blockchain is just a smart contract, and that's how it all works.
To make that as a set of videos for
C-word
YouTube.
This is the thing. Like, we can talk about that later, but like, you know, it was genuinely well-intentioned, and it was showing people how not to fall for scams. It was showing people how to, if they want to invest some money, how they can do it in a safe and controlled way. It was all well-intentioned, and that was because I myself have gone through, I've been rugged, do you know what I mean? We're rug pulled, I've lost money, I've gained money, and I was just thinking, like, people, the general public need to know about this. This is why people are getting scammed, because they don't know.
And the only way to learn was doing those things.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Like,
made
you learn
the
about rug
mistakes.
pulls by getting rugged, and you learn about NFTs by having your whole wallet pillaged.
Bro. Yeah, I think it's just tough, because going back to what you were saying before, when you know your neighbours made 100 million quid trading crypto, and then you want to be safe, controlled, earning a decent APY, you don't want that. You want to earn 100 million quid as well. And I think that's what makes it difficult. That's why online now you just find kids selling FX courses, like just being promised millions. That's all people ultimately care about at the end of the day.
Does it work? Is it still a thing, the magic bean effect?
110%.
That's wild. I guess that's a human nature thing, right? In your line of work, Mr. X, is this a thing? Do people rock up and be like excited, desperate to make money?
I think, yeah, you definitely find clients are excited and want to make money and, you know, get market exposure. I think typically you'll find that, especially when a client is leaving one investment manager to go to another investment manager or another wealth manager.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the job of the advisor or the investment manager to be blunt, pipe them down as well, and, you know, actually give them, I don't want to say decent advice, but just manage expectations.
But that's the right thing to do, isn't it? And I think this is what's missing with crypto. There's no expectation management. People just go in on a wing and a prayer and with like a twinkle in their eye, and they're just like, I'm going to make money. And I think the reality drop is so harsh. It's so harsh that people never forget that. People remember the bad things, but they don't remember the good things. They take the good things as granted. That's supposed to have happened to me, but they remember the bad things, because you might not remember what might have happened, but you remember how you felt at the time.
Yeah.
And that's with everything. So I think this is the problem that we have. This is the problem I had with my poor night school. Maybe it might reincarnate itself online.
It's got to. I think we should put it as a service.
110%.
It's so useful.
We should do. We should make a series on the YouTube channels.
And if you want to access the videos, you have to buy the
By the
kryptonite coin.
By the token that we're about to just do now.
But I think like going on this whole, like, you know, full circle moment, you know, it really hits people hard when they see, 13, 14-year-olds, like you said, putting out channels on how to trade and, I've just created my own token, and then they go and, pull it. And it's just like, that's really heartbreaking for people to know. Exactly. To know how easy it is to be done in the 30s. Think, okay, got a little bit of trading experience, but then you've got the 13-year-old on YouTube showing up, making thousands and thousands.
Do you know that absolutely...
It kills me.
Yeah,
it kills me.
It makes my heart sink when I see that, and that's like, it's a sign of like the world changing, right? It's a sign of the world changing. Like, knowledge is moving from the siloed way it used to be, where if you wanted to trade, you went to someone that could process your trades. But now people are doing it themselves. Technology has allowed it to be accessed online, and
it's the same with like eToro as well, right? As
copy trading.
110%. Like, the amount of advisors that are now leaving, like, the investment space, going to companies like eToro, setting up a fund and having copy traders, because as an advisor, broadly speaking, you're going to be charging 1% on AUM, right? So if you've got 100 mil assets under management, your company's charging 1%. If you're on a self-employed model, you're going to get 50% of that as revenue, right? So £1 million, you're going to earn £500,000 a year. But on eToro, you can go to eToro, try and build a £100 million client bank. Well, it's not really client, but just copy traders.
Yeah. But if you have 1 million people doing
you get
£100, then you're still there. Yeah.
Right? So eToro is taking 2 mil and they're paying you 1. That's insane. And people are just copying your trades.
Yeah.
You don't have to get any advice. There is no, portfolio management in terms of underlying clients. It's just people are copying your trades. That's insane.
Yeah. That mechanism is like viral at its core. Money plus copying the best traders. I mean, how I can't see, unless obviously you can lose money, obviously, if you copy a bad trader.
This is not financial advice.
But I don't know, like, how well does eToro do, Mr. X?
It's dependent on the underlying trader ultimately, because they're just, eToro is just a platform.
Right.
It's like any sort of crypto exchange. You go there just to facilitate your trades. The ancillary service is then having copy trading.
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating.
We should set up a crypto copy trading.
I think that'd be quite interesting, to be fair. That's really interesting.
And it's just like buy 500 million bitcoins before Trump pumps it. Copy that.
Have some sort of Twitter bot that just you're able to just...
Yeah. I'll set up an MEV bot.
Yeah.
We're going to explain MEV?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have no clue what it is. I feel like I'm not involved in the joke.
I thought I did get it. So basically, when people are processing transactions on crypto, it's done like by an individual node. But if you know that you're about to do a big transaction, you can put a transaction either side of it, which, because there's a big transaction going through, it moves the price. So you can take money off it by moving the price of the coins.
Yeah. And in TradFi, we'll call that illegal because it's front running.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it's called.
And the thing that got me was that massive one that we were talking about when it was USDT to USDC. How do you pump those? Because they're both tethered to the dollar. So
I think with that, I mean, again, I'm not too sure, but price moves ever so slightly. So we're talking a few decimal places.
Yeah.
Here, right? Yeah. It does move up and down ever so slightly, because if I look at USDC in my portfolio, the line is moving slightly up and down, but it's generally staying at $1. But it is moving like 3 or 4 decimal points. And I think the token decimal places for USDC and T, I think it's only 4 decimal places.
Yeah, it's like 0.9996 normally, or like 0.9997. Yeah.
Is that tradable with large size though? Because buying the dip on, SDT goes down to 97 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do people actually trade that? Like, is that a thing?
No.
Okay,
I think so. But then it's just the MEV is like a sandwich thing, right? So you have to put one before it and one after it.
Yeah.
So you're moving money out, and then you do the big trade so the price goes up a bit, and then you put the money in, then you put the big transaction through to put the price up, and then you take the money back out immediately.
Yeah.
It's like milliseconds before and after.
It all happens so quick, and it can only be done by bots.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Like, only machines can execute this. So, do the way this happens in the first place, you're probably wondering how this is even, how a computer knows that this is about to happen before it even happens. And that's because of the design of like the way blockchain transactions work. So before a blockchain transaction is executed, it goes into something called a memory pool. And all these transactions wait there to be picked up by a node before it gets written to the blockchain. Whatever it was trying to do gets executed by a node. But before that, they sort of all go into a waiting room, these transactions, and they're just dotting about in a waiting room, waiting to be processed.
Yeah. And there's a computer looking in that room
I'm not
to see a really fat transaction in the room.
Turns out this waiting
That
room,
one.
Yeah.
Turns out this waiting room is made of glass, right? And everyone can see it.
Yeah.
And these bots are just sat outside, like licking their lips, like, yeah, look at that one.
There's a couple of people there with just like an envelope, and somebody comes in with a backpack and 2 suitcases. And like, yeah.
This guy is about to do something big, right? So what they do is and the suitcases is clear, so they can see. This is the problem with like this infrastructure being open source and public, right? You can see everything, for better or for worse. You can see everything, and they see what's inside, and they're like, right, there's going to be a massive transaction with that token. So they go in and they buy loads of that token first. The price of it goes up. That means the person with the bags who wants to buy a load of that token is now about to get a lot less because they thought they were getting a lot of these tokens, but actually the price has just gone up. Just gone up because the person standing in front of you went and bought a load of tokens as well. You don't get much. The bot afterwards comes along and then just sells immediately the token. Yeah, because the price has gone up. So it's quite hard to understand. There's 3 steps.
Here's what I didn't understand. How, if you see big stacks in the waiting room, how do you buy before they've gone through? Because you still need to wait, right?
No, that's true, but you can bypass the waiting room and you can go straight to your own node. So these bots are probably running their own infrastructure where they don't need to go to a waiting room.
Yeah. Is that like when you do your own, what was it? On Ethereum wave you had, was it like 13,000? 30,000?
32.
32.
And
yeah.
you
can have your own node.
Run your own node,
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what happens.
So all you need to do is get 32 ETH.
Yeah.
And build a bot and you're good to go.
We're making money. This is not financial advice.
Yeah, this definitely isn't. And basically that's how it works. And
I love it when step 1 of all these scams is like, have a shitload of money. Just be president.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What is 32 ETH now?
32
probably not more than 32 grand at the moment.
I'm telling you, 32 ETH.
Like 40 grand.
USD.
48.
Yeah, 48 grand.
Quick maths.
Did you just word that out in your head?
Of course.
Yeah. Mr. X knows all the markets.
Yeah.
Mr. X over here.
We should our coin should be MRX.
So that's all you need, which, to a scammer, might be a relatively small amount of money. Right?
Yeah, I think if you're investing 50 grand and then what that USDT, USDC was like 200 grand on that one example. Yeah. And if you think about them doing that to everyone, because you don't just have to do it on big ones. You could do it on little ones, right?
Yeah, you can, and it does happen.
Yeah, you just said it for every single trade that's happening.
I work for a company that runs blockchain infrastructure across several blockchains, and we have alerts set up just to say when we've been front run, when a transaction's been front run, which is, we can detect it because we see a transaction that is in our infrastructure waiting to go through, and then something happened before it.
Is there like an automatic, a stop?
You can't pull it.
You just get a warning being like, you're about to get scammed.
So if you get the warning, how do you prevent it?
Due to the nature of the blockchain, once it's in the mempool, you can't really stop it.
Right.
There's a mechanism where you might be able to stop it, right? So I'm simplifying this now. So whenever you send a transaction, you are also sending with it a piece of information saying, Mr. Node, whoever picks this up, this is how much I'm willing to pay you. And I'll give you a bit, gas. I'll give you a little bit more if you pick up my transaction sooner, right?
A little tip.
Yeah, like a tip.
Brown envelope under the table.
Yeah, it's actually called tipping. You tip the node, and what happens is this incentivizes the nodes to be like, right, I'm going to take you first. So let's say if you submit a transaction and it's about to be, you know that there's something wrong with the transaction or you want to change it, you submit another transaction with a much higher tip. Effectively the same transaction, but with a much higher tip, and the nodes will take that one first. But they will see the order come through, and they'll be like, right.
Do you have to try and front run the front runner?
Yeah.
That's crazy, because surely then that's just a conflict of interest.
It is, but what happens is when you submit transaction 1 and 2, transaction 2 has the higher tip. They will take that, but they will see that there was transaction 1 and 2 in this chain, but they were the same transaction.
Can you not bulk up the orders as well? So
that's like a layer 2s and stuff too, right? Well,
how do you mean? Sorry,
roll-ups.
Oh, roll-ups.
Yeah. I think is what you're saying.
Yeah. So basically, if there's a transaction, I don't know, for 1,000, and there's another transaction for 2, can you not bulk them up and have one single transaction for 3 to stop said front running?
Oh, yeah. They call it batching, but actually, the thing is each one of these is still an atomic operation. It's still a 1-to-1 thing. Do you know what I mean? So you might submit something as a batch.
Yeah, because underneath you still need each one.
Yeah,
each block on the chain is going to have the transaction in, so you can't put them through as one block. Because you'd have to have blocks.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
I've got a question that's probably not going to make it in the cut.
Go on.
But if you were a multi-chain infrastructure company...
Naming no names.
Yeah.
As Matt looks at me right now,
I might just
you just literally said you do that too.
just ask in the room in case anyone
just anyone's around that might be present.
Would it not be a good idea to just have your own nodes for each chain?
But they are expensive to run. This is the problem.
But it'd be so safe.
It would be so safe, yes. It would be so safe. And I wouldn't
New idea. Could we get back in for this? Node wallet.
I imagine that, the best wallets or the most private wallets are running their own infrastructure that others can't use.
Is there any wallets to do that?
I'm sure there is. I don't know, actually. But
how would you find them?
I think you would have to go and do some research onto wallets that use their own... We can ask ChatGPT. Should we ask ChatGPT?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Because I would for sure I would much rather use a wallet that couldn't be attacked. These bots that do these front running trades, it's basically like just throwing a smoke screen in and being like,
that's it.
They're trying to work it out and you're just sitting next to them just shouting numbers and they can't work it out. They're like, stop it, I'm trying to do the maths. And you're like 725.
That's such a great analogy.
And then they can't do it.
For using MEVs.
But it's mad.
That is crazy. And the thing is, like, Mr. X, you're commenting on about how confusing this all is in a way.
Yeah, because I don't understand why you need a market maker if it's peer-to-peer.
Yeah, the whole thing, and even when I say this to myself, it is a mad realization. The whole thing is just cryptography under the hood. It's just...
Yeah, it's bad how people forget that when it's called crypto.
It's just all cryptographic.
It's just really intense maths.
It's just intense mathematics, which is why it's expensive to run the infrastructure, because the CPU of these machines is at like maximum. It's being slammed all the time. I would hate to see the CPU's representation of a human. Like, do you know what I mean? They would be in such a mess. Just cigarettes and like just bottles of beer like all the time, just never being allowed to stop. Just like, like bloodshot eyes and stuff, Yeah. We'll get a picture of that and we'll put it up on the screen if you're watching the YouTube one, just to show what this person might look like if they were a real person.
That's going to come up, isn't it, in the human trials? When they'll be like, you actually made this CPU cry, so...
So it is all cryptographic mathematics under the hood, and it's all one way as well, which is what makes it secure. So there's no going backwards. You can't go backwards to find out from, for example, someone's from someone's wallet address, you can't find out what their private key is. And from their private key, you can't find out what their 12 words were. You can't work your way backwards. You can only work your way forwards.
Yeah.
There is all these experiments and crackers and stuff like that, people trying to crack the algorithm. But whilst it is possible, it takes such a long time, and you would need quantum computing to even make it happen in your lifetime.
But I think that's such an important point to make there, because I think that there was so much scarcity. I mean, back in 2018, it was like, we weren't as knowledgeable as what we are now in the industry, in the space. And I think that a lot of people were like, oh, I'm just going to get hacked, you're going to get hacked, you're going to get hacked. And it was like, well, no, it's really hard to do that, actually.
Yeah. All of the hacks would just get someone to do something stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Even now, it's click a link.
Human error. Human error, completely different. If you give out and share your private key, things like that. But I'm talking about actually just being hacked. And it's a lot more of an in-depth process than people think. It's not just hacking into your bank account.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to make note of that, because it was such a big misconception of what that looks like.
And people think, oh, I've been hacked. My crypto wallet's been hacked. You made a mistake.
Yeah, you made a mistake somewhere along the chain.
It wasn't the technology that failed you. For example, if it was a bank account.
What are you trying to say?
If it was like a bank account or something along them lines, and we've spoken about this before, but it can just be as easy as someone hacking into the database and changing a couple of digits against a record. But you can't do that with crypto and blockchains, because it is all cryptography, and it's all one way. If you try to change something, the whole network is like, that's not right. Change it back. And you had a really good analogy, Matt. Do you remember, like, everyone in the room?
Oh, yeah.
That was such a great analogy. Do you want to say it again? Because it was just on the context, it was really good.
Previously, with like banks and like traditional finance, people just they don't know how much money there is, and it's a spreadsheet that no one gets to look at. So people are just like, I'm worth this much, and you have no idea if they are. Whereas in crypto, it's like everyone's in the room and everyone knows how much money everyone has. And if someone's just like, I'm a millionaire, everyone goes, but you're not. Because there's like the clear suitcase thing in the mempools. It's like everyone can see what's in the wallet.
So that person can't be like, I'm a millionaire. And everyone's just like, oh,
no, you're not.
You're not, mate.
We've all seen that you weren't. You've just like crudely drawn another zero.
House value.
Couple of zeros there,
Why is this a red pen?
I'm telling you, my one bed flat in Croydon is worth £1 million, mate.
Yeah.
100%.
It will be one day.
Yeah, one day.
So MEV wallets, or should I say MEV resistant wallets, they do exist. Flashbots is one. That's a well-known one. They provide MEV resistant infrastructure.
So they charge a fee, or?
I do not know how it works actually behind.
And the MEV resistance, so far we've worked out, is most likely just going to be having their own nodes to run your transactions
on. They couldn't be pulling down the open source version of the nodes on GitHub and just running it. They would have to have modified it extensively in order to be resistant. And that's like big brain stuff.
Yeah.
To be able to...
I remember that being, because when we were working on the poker website, and the math for that was really intense, and that was literally just people playing cards. So this anti-MEV stuff must be insane.
Yeah, and I can understand why it's big money as well, right?
Yeah. But again, it's like an insurance, right? No one wants to make a simple trade of a stablecoin to a stablecoin and lose $200,000.
Yeah.
But even now, like, understanding all the steps, it's mental to be like, they're both worth $1. And I transferred $1 to $1, and I lost $200,000.
It's crazy.
Yeah. How is that even a thing? And the worst part is you can't get that back, right? Because again, you cannot go backwards in cryptography. Right?
No.
You cannot go backwards.
What was that hacker we were talking about the other week? They gave everyone their money back.
Bybit,
yeah.
They did, and that was because they were running their business in a centralized way. They had investors that the company went and asked for the money to give them loans, because they had investment in a traditional finance way, and they just gave them money and they reimbursed everyone. But if you're some decentralized exchange with 3 people working and no investment, you just set up an exchange, like, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done. No one's getting their money back. So in a way, I can see how a lot of companies run their crypto operations in like a hybrid way. They've got 1 foot in traditional finance and then the other foot in decentralized, like the very nature of blockchains.
Yeah.
Are exchanges, are they their own custodian as well? Because I want to buy 1 BTC on whatever exchange. Do they then have to go out and get that BTC and hold it in wherever they hold it?
So there's a couple of ways. There's several ways. They call it like routing. The optimal way would be if they held their own crypto, because then they don't have to pay someone else to get it.
Sure.
Because they fall under the same, having to pay transaction fees and stuff like that. But a lot of these, your everyday exchange, if they can't find it in their own reserves, they'll go and find it somewhere else. They will look at all the other exchanges and go, have you got 1 BTC? For whatever it is the user wants, is trying to trade. And one of them might say, yep, here it is. And
that's only on decentralized ones, right?
That's correct, on decentralized ones.
Because on Coinbase, you don't need the Bitcoin until someone takes out and sends it to another wallet.
Yeah, I imagine Coinbase is a very different operation.
Say that again?
So Coinbase and Binance and others, they're centralized. So you don't own the coins that you have. You give them your money and they hold it, and they'll just be like, yeah, fine. You can say that you've got one Bitcoin and 1 Ethereum, but really you've just got 60 grand in an account.
But if you transfer that to a wallet
outside, then you get it, yeah.
But then...
Because then they just send it from their wallet.
Okay, fine. Okay, makes sense.
But on like decentralized exchanges, like Uniswap, then they're powered by other people's...
So then it's peer-to-peer.
Liquidity pools, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, you were saying? Yeah, I was saying just then,
protection.
Protection. There is no protection if you make a fat finger trade in crypto, right? If you fuck it up, you fucked it up.
No. Right? TradFi, there's so many. You've got your market, you've got your dealer that picks up the order before they route it through to the market maker. They'll tell you if you added an extra 0, this was a fat finger. If the client doesn't have enough cash on file, there'll be a credit pop-up that pops up on the trading screen. Not enough cash on file.
This sort of stuff could easily be a feature in a wallet.
Yeah.
You do get pop-ups saying make sure you check this transaction before you send it.
But do you know what? Like, I recently implemented a similar feature, right? That if you are spending 50% or more of your entire wallet holdings, or was it of that particular token that you were sending, it would warn you.
Yeah.
Do you know what was really weird? Like, this is the thing. I implemented that feature because I understand that if you're going to build a wallet that is aimed at everyone, you've got to have a little bit of protection in there. You've got to try and look after your users a little bit, right? The people that I work with who are tech savvy, crypto bros and girls.
Why are you putting an extra click in?
Yeah, they didn't like it. They were just like, why are you telling them that they're about to spend all their money? Do you know what I mean? And I was like, because we're looking after the users.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah, I was going to say, so my previous company I used to work for, this is exactly what we did.
Yeah.
So it used machine learning to essentially understand the user and kind of, what their normal transaction sizes look like and who they're transacting to. So in the event of like a fat finger, it would say, okay, hang on, this looks very familiar to a previous address that you sent to, but it's a different digit. Are you sure?
Yeah.
But also those kind of limit orders in a sense that it would say, typical transaction was 1K. This is 50. Well, I put the brakes on. Are you sure? Yeah. Why are you doing this? And it wasn't incredibly intrusive. It would just be that tick box to say that safety net. Yeah. So instead of, are you sure? And I think it's so important that there are platforms out there like that for the novice to essentially, be onboarded with something like that. So then easily done, like you said, fat finger.
Yeah, so. And I think considering that is in place for me as a market prof.
We should have something, a counterpart in crypto,
110% for retail investors or traders.